You're listening to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry, and I'm going to keep harking on signing up for my Patreon to help support this podcast until you do. This week I'm chatting with Victoria Mateo, a certified money coach who caters specifically to creative professionals such as yourself. With a background in film and finance, Victoria shares the story of how she finally merged these two worlds and loves of hers to start her own practice this last year. In our chat, she shares some of the misconceptions artists have about their finances and the 4 steps you can take to set yourself up for a better financial future. So without further ado, let's jump in. Hello, Victoria. How are you doing today?
I am well.
Good. Excellent. You told me you were painting earlier. You were painting.
Yeah, I've been, my partner and I, we've been renovating our new house that we were fortunate enough to acquire in this market.
Nice. Well, thank you for changing out of your painting clothes and joining me on this chat. I'm excited to talk. Like I said, I was just saying a few minutes ago, I don't think I've had a chat focused specifically on, managing your money and finances and like being aware of like, your future, I don't know what to call it, treasure chest. So tell me, like in a 1 or 2 sentences, like tell me about what you do.
Well, since last year, I started this personal project in money coaching for creators, which is basically there's a path, right, to go through in order for you to understand your relationship with your finances, right? That no one really teaches us while we're growing up.
Yeah.
And then you're an adult and you are supposed to take care of all these responsibilities that, okay, I don't really know how to deal with them. And even if you do, they probably have some background information there that's keeping you from like actually doing it the best way for you. So my work in money coaching is helping you navigate that.
Okay.
And understand the underlying patterns that keep you from actually managing in a better manner your finances. So you can then make better decisions in terms of how you use your money and literally finding out what's your idea of prosperity, which is different for everyone.
Totally.
And then you can strategize around it, right? What to do with that money, which is different to just going to a financial advisor that will just tell you, okay, you go there and you say, here's my money, what do I do with it? And then, okay, these are the options you have.
They're like, here, buy all these mutual funds so you can so I can get commission off of you.
Yeah.
That's what my financial advisor at TD Bank did. And I was like, well, this isn't helpful at all.
And honestly, and I remember first time I went to the bank and got my mutual funds account and everything. I did some research, but I didn't really know what that meant. Because I never had to deal with it before. And my parents didn't have to deal with that because my parents grew up in a different country and they had no idea. And even my parents didn't teach me a lot of what I know about money. I learned that in school and university when I graduated as an economist. So anyhow, my path as money coach is to help people understand what's behind so they can make more objective decisions around money. Okay, because behind money there are so many emotions and underlying patterns that actually are sitting there making us go through paths that we don't necessarily understand, and then make decisions that we sometimes regret, sometimes we're very happy with, and sometimes we just don't know. Right?
So you've mentioned paths a couple of times, and I want to talk about that. But first, maybe let's roll it back a bit, because I'm interested in how you got specifically into money for creatives. And you have a film background, you have an economics background, accounting, all this fun stuff, and that seems there's not a lot of people who like have that specific crossover. So where did where did things start for you that you were like, okay, I like animation and film, but I like also money, managing money. So like tell me where it started.
Sure. Well, it was an exciting but rocky journey for me to understand that I could do both things. Right? And
Hmm.
then I found this idea where I could actually like mix my two sides of my brain that I was actually using. I was always very creative.
So you
I
went to
didn't,
school for economics, right?
so I graduated initially not like I graduated as an economist back in my country where I was born in Venezuela. And because I was very creative and I was pretty much an artist, I wanted to also pursue a career that was more creative. And
Mhm.
I moved abroad to Argentina to study special effects. And because I wanted to do like special effects makeup and explosions and all of these things that I grew up with that were so impressive, and I wanted to do magic in film. And I did a little bit of that, but when I was there, I realized that I also had other skill set. And then I went through production and art direction and logistics, and in every role I had, I was called back because I was good at managing the budget,
Hmm.
which was something that not all of the creatives in those roles were able to do. And I realized then, okay, so I still have that skill set because I literally went to university for it, but also because I cared about it. And I hustled and hustled a lot, like a lot of people in the film industry. And I decided to just pursue a more administrative path in film. And that brought me here to Toronto, where I'm based now, in 2017. And since then, I've been in finance for specifically visual effects and animation. And that's why I'm here today.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So like I have a business background too, and I was working in business and doing art as a hobby, and now I'm doing art as a business and business as a incorporated, I guess. So, but okay, so if you're, do you ever feel like you want to get back into working in special effects and makeup and stuff? Do you ever feel like a little bit of like FOMO, like feel missing out because you're just working in finances when you also did that stuff and got started in that too? I'm just curious.
It's actually a great question because I find a lot of creatives go through that conflict. It's like, I don't want to stop being creative, and
Yeah.
I just because I have to pay the bills. And there's some misconception that you have to just stop doing what you love in order to make a living. And first of all, that sucks because that's not real. And it's just an unfounded social concept, very much based on the starving artist myth, which is a
Yeah.
myth, by the way. But apart from that, um, I'm doing something creative.
Hmm.
And like even painting the new house to me, it's just like so fulfilling because I am being creative by painting the walls, and I can say, I created this. And I am very curious. I'm a very curious human being, so I will always be doing something different, and I still incorporate my creativity in what I do. But the focus of what I do right now, it's so fulfilling to me. I found something that's pretty much a calling I'm passionate about. It fills me up with energy, which a lot of artists feel when they're creating something, right? And
Totally.
that's how I knew, okay, this is how I put together those two things. And it also makes me feel that I'm creating something even bigger. So I found a purpose in what I'm doing. And that's what keeps me creating and producing something all the time that makes me feel that I can make a living from it, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I suggest to every creative person. You have to be certain what's your purpose.
Have you heard of the Japanese concept? I'm going to mispronounce this. It's called like do you know what I'm going to say? Ikigai, oh gosh, I'm going to have to look this up. Um, Ikigai.
No, I
It's
haven't.
like a Venn diagram with like four quadrants where it's like one is what you love, one is what you're good at, one is what you're paid for, and one is what the world needs. And like if you find what you're good at and when you could get paid for, that's called a profession. And like if you find what you're good at and what you love, that's called a passion. And what you find what if you love and what the world needs, it's called a mission. And a vocation is a needs and wants. But if you find everything all at the once, that's like, your internal purpose. And it's like where everything aligns and you become like, the best version of yourself exporting stuff into the world. It's a very
I
interesting
love that.
concept, and I other than mispronouncing it, is it's the whole thing was very instrumental in like leading me on figuring out my specific path. And I still don't feel like I'm exactly there yet, but you just kind of reminded me of that when you were talking about, finding these things that converge and really finding your passion. And that sounds amazing. And you said you've been doing this for a year now. So how does it feel?
Okay, it's been a process, like
Yeah.
everything. And by the way, this was not easy to
No.
understand. And it took me, first of all, a lot of therapy for years and like coaching and also going through my money coaching process because I also had my own patterns and emotions behind the way I behaved with money. Even though I was very good with it, I literally was working in accounting and finance,
Yeah.
and I still had a lot of anxiety and stress behind it, right? Um,
Who
and that's what
doesn't?
really brought me here, like to this path. Like I wanted to understand why my colleagues, why the people that I would hang out with that were so talented, so creative, so smart, including myself, were struggling with this fundamental thing
Hmm.
that is so tied to our survival, which is money. And my own journey of not understanding how to deal with this anxiety, stress, and all the things that I had to work on through my own money coaching process was what brought me to money coaching. And then I was able to create this idea. You know what? This is what creative people need. I've been seeing this so much. I would see people that would be amazing at finding grants and just producing this amazing project, but then they would be left out with like $0 in their bank account, or people that would just earn a lot of money in their salaries a year and they would just be full of debt, or people that would just always create work, amazing hard work for free all the time. And we like it's very ingrained in the artist's mind that we have to do this. That's the way that a real artist behaves, and you don't deal with money or things like that. And these are all misconceptions. Money is not supposed to be difficult. Obviously there's going to be layers. It's the same as the complexity that you see in different types of art, right? Like the basics are simple, but then the more you go in depth with everything that you are interested in, it gets more complicated, right? If you want to go in depth in finances, then you are going to be a finance expert. But we don't need to be finance experts to deal with money.
So, well, 100%. And I like what you're saying, as an artist, you grow up just making art for free anyways. And so when somebody's like, here's a penny for an hour of work, you're like, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So okay, you've mentioned a couple misconceptions that, the starving artist is a myth. When you take on a new client or something, what are some of those things that you notice that are really common misconceptions that because you had your own, like you watched your friends for years until you realized like, hey, I can help these people. So what are some of the things that like for even me, like I should start framing differently when I take my finances or whatnot to get to, I don't even know what I'm asking.
No,
What are
okay.
some of the misconceptions I have that can change the way I handle my finances to set myself up for a better financial situation in the future as an artist?
Well, the first thing that I can think of is that we cannot solve what is fundamentally an emotional and behavioral problem with a financial solution. We can, though, solve a financial problem if we deal with that behavioral and emotional and subconscious pattern, right? And what I find a lot in everyone, actually, when they're talking about money matters in general, is that our upbringings are all different, right? So we have different emotions
Yeah.
and different learnings about money. So we cannot think that what works for my friend or for like everyone else will work for me if I feel different about it, right? Because like what your upbringing was completely different to mine. Like I literally come from a country where hyperinflation is 3,000%, and that was traumatizing for me. But and many other things. The economy is super broken, and then I come here and like things seem to work, but then there's so much stress because you still have to work hard, right?
Yeah.
And some people were actually like they grew up in a very wealthy family, but that didn't mean that they taught them how to use money. So they still feel different emotions around it, and there are so many barriers in actually thinking that you can deal with it properly. So
So what are some examples of you've mentioned behavioral patterns that you need to like look at and break. What are some examples of of that?
well, the main example is financial stress.
Okay.
Which is basically I recently learned that at least for based on this survey that was done this year, um, 4 in 10 Canadians suffer from financial stress because they say that money is one of the main sources of stress in their life. And 1/3 of Canadians have experience mental health situations or challenges because of their financial
I mean,
situation.
that makes sense to me. I'm
Right?
surprised it's not everybody.
I know it's the most common thing. So how do we expect that if we're stressed about it, we're going to deal with it the right way?
Yeah.
Every time we are under stress, we make decisions that are not necessarily
Right. Out of fear or anxiety versus out of I don't know, the opposite of fear and anxiety.
happiness,
Happiness.
clarity,
Yeah.
calm. I don't know. There's so many things like fulfillment,
Yeah.
right? You don't feel you feel like you have enough.
Right.
So you're not stressed about it. And actually the meaning of prosperity is the it can be also include you can include in prosperity like good health and happiness, but it's pretty much related to the amount of material well-being that can say this is enough,
Totally.
will free yourself from financial stress.
Right.
And that's
Well,
different for everyone.
of course. Well, and health and, happiness and all that is tied up in everything's tied up in money, unfortunately. So, okay. So, you work specifically with creatives, and you're not like giving strategies on like how to get more clients or like, uh, is it?
It depends, right?
Yeah.
Because I would have a client that is actually struggling in how to um, understand what their work is worth,
Hmm.
or actually being confident that it's worth what it's worth.
Yeah.
I would have clients that are actually struggling in receiving money, so they would say no all the time to people, and like then they would have no money. I would have clients that would really need a strategy in their business. So, what are the things that they are needing to focus on? And that's more like a business development side, right? Like,
Right.
um, it depends on the client's need or the group needs, because also sometimes I coach groups. But what's important is that we are all different and we all have different needs in terms of money.
Yeah, it makes sense. And we're all just ragtag putting together our own strategies on how we should manage our own money. So like, okay, so say I'm stressed about money right now, which let's say I am. I am. Why not? I'm always stressed about money. Who isn't? Where do I even start? I'm stressed about money. I'm working full time. I have future goals. If it's like a house or a car or just like a vacation or something, where do I start to like, relieve some of that stress and start working towards a better financial future? Like what is the first step that I should do when I'm like, I've been managing my own finances for my whole life and now I'm like, something's not working. Where do I start?
Well, you can start by um, signing up for a money coaching course.
Okay, cool. Great. Perfect.
No, but apart from that, I feel it's very important to create awareness on what your patterns are, right? And for that, it's always very useful to look at your money history.
Okay.
So start, yeah, which is something that we never think about, right?
So
Like,
like gather my credit card statements,
not
uh,
even,
my
no,
debit. No?
understanding how, like, what were your experiences with money since you were a kid?
Hmm.
Okay.
So like for me, like I didn't grow up super wealthy. So like my allowance was coins that I would find on the street. So I was like very, very, very like frugal with the couple dollars I'd have. And I'd go and buy like penny candies and I'd choose them like so specifically. So like that's like way back that stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that can determine the way you behave with money nowadays. And maybe you are very good with like keeping track of your money in your bank account, right? Because of that, because you were okay. I'm very specific on what I'm going to spend my money with, right? Like these are the things I value. So this is where my money's gonna go,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which is also how everyone behaves. It's like we use our money and the things that we value. Sometimes we don't really know what is it that we value, and that's one thing that you realize when you start looking at your money history and at yourself and your patterns and like the things that you learned from school, from your parents, from the friends that you hang out with. And once you create awareness, you can name those things. And that's when you can change them, transform them, or just honor them because they have been helping you. Because being picky with like what you did with your money actually helped you manage your money in a very structured way, or like this is where I put my money in because I maybe fear that I won't have the ability to buy it at some point, so I am going to be very um structured. Does this sound
Yeah, it
uh
does. Like it makes sense to me to really figure out, excuse me, what are the traits that formed your money spending habits, which uh, would lead to where you are or I am right now, the apartment I'm in, this part of the city I'm in, the clothes I own. I had to purchase these all at some point, and you can go back to your childhood for anything.
of course so
So like step one is just like figure out why you are the way you are with your relationship with money. And I'm assuming that's going to take a little bit of work, maybe talking to your family or like your partner or something and saying like, okay, here are my values when it comes to spending money, why I'm frugal in some areas, why I'm big spender in other areas, what I'm most stressed about, what I not stressed about, et cetera, et cetera. So get like the landscape of like where you're at currently with where you've been.
well it's kind of looking at the source of these things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
the talking needs to happen with ourselves, like and as a coach I'm just there as a guide, right? Like and I poke your brain just okay, so where does this come from? But mostly for you to figure it out by like by yourself, because that's going to empower you too.
Yeah.
Once I know, I can do something about it, right? It's like once you learn how to use a new software, I know how to use it, I can do something with it, and I can promote, like I can make a better version of what I used to do.
Yeah, makes sense.
So it's the same, it's applicable, and we relate to money like if it was another human being, which is funny because like we just put all of these emotions in money like if it was alive, but money is just an object. It
So are you
has to
saying
be
to try to remove those emotions from money, to treat it more like a just a process?
treated for its utilitarian value,
Hmm.
which is the means, right? And that's where a lot of creative professionals struggle with, because we are so intuitive and so in tune with our spiritual like connection and also our emotions, because that's how we create new things, that we treat most things the same way. And imagine treating some object like that, that is so crucial to our survival. And that's a challenge,
Yeah,
because if it's not there, we don't feel safe.
of course.
So that's why, and especially in this moment, right, with the strike and everything, like the feeling of being safe was gone, because we left it, we put it on an object that is the means to do things, to
Right.
allow us to live and create.
I mean, yeah, that makes total sense. It's interesting to think about it in this way. Like, I'm wondering, once you have this kind of landscape and awareness of yourself, and you have this conversation with yourself, and like, what is the next step from there? Is it to identify like what's like, say I understand why the source of things, how do I go forward changing it and know I'm changing it in a way that's setting me up for more financial success in the future? Especially because like, as a freelancer, working contract to contract, part of my safety net is just having a contract. It doesn't matter so much. Well, the money matters, but like, knowing that I'm able to work for like the next 6 months, and then being like, well, then I'm gonna have to search for my next contract. The next contract might be 3 times as much pay, or it might be 3 times less as much pay. So how do you, like, I'm just wondering, once I'm aware of my patterns and sources, like, how do I change for the future based on, being a creative freelancer, or if I work at a studio or whatnot, like everybody's, I guess, contract based. But what is the next step to go forward?
Okay, so
I'm asking 5 million things.
no, I love it, because first of all, this is different every time. Like the questions that you have definitely can apply to many freelancers, but not all freelancers are struggling with the same.
Right, of course.
Um, but in terms of what you're asking, I think the first thing is to try to find a structure that works for you, that you feel excited about, right? Like it's not so much like, okay, my contract is going to be done, so I'm starting to get anxious because of it. I have to start looking for another. It's more, how do I have a system that makes me plan for the next
Mm.
contract without feeling like I won't have it
Yeah.
at all, because it's very difficult. And it's like going and applying for jobs, right? Um, and that's going to give you the confidence. Okay, I know how to deal with what I can control, but which leads me to another thing, which is what we can't control is the outcome from other people, right? So because we can take control of our own decisions and our own process, we take care of that little by little. There are strategies, obviously, like once you understand your patterns and everything, these are challenging things to find out that you have. These are not like, yeah, it's so nice to deal with stress. No, tell that to my therapist for years. But but the thing is, once you have seen it, okay, what are small, simple things that you can start doing to transform that? Okay, and be also patient with yourself, because it's not one day to the other that these things are going to change.
Totally.
I still have my own patterns that will come out every time I'm in a crisis or like something happens. And now I have the tools, because I learned, okay, every time this pattern comes up, because it's so ingrained in my life, in my brain, and my core, is always going to try to come out. So one of the things I do in my experience is, accept it. It's like, I see your pattern, and I am acknowledging that you exist. I don't say no, no, I don't want to feel stress. I don't want to feel you right now. No, it's more, okay, I see you stress, I feel you. And what is it that you're trying to tell me? And how can I deal with it
Hmm.
from my thinking frame, not my emotional frame?
So if I'm thinking about this correctly, for instance, like if I'm stressed about where my next contract is going to be, how can I accept that that's just the scenario I'm in and saying, it's just my reality, and then figuring out how I can create some sort of structure, no matter how small, that I'm excited about, that will lead me to the next contract, for instance.
How?
No, I'm just asking, is it if like I'm just reiterating what you're saying, because
Oh, okay, yeah, to confirm. Yes, I mean, this is one way.
yeah,
But there are many, how do you call it? How do you say this? There are many paths that go to Rome. Basically.
right. Sure. I was thinking of a different one. There's many ways to what skin a, I
I'm
don't know
trying to
what the,
translate it from Spanish, which is funny. Anyhow, there are many ways to get to a destination.
yeah,
Now, what is the best way for each one of us?
of course.
We have to define that. And we have to understand what are the things that are important to us. Some people are not scared of not finding another contract, right? What are the other things that are actually keeping you from like being a good teammate or a good employee, because people don't like when you are around them, but you are actually always having work because you're very talented. Okay, there are other areas, right? There are other paths to go, okay, maybe I'm sabotaging this situation because of XYZ, right?
Right, right, right.
It's very particular to each person. And as creatives, we all think so different too, because our mind just goes everywhere. It's like our imagination is just like, yeah. And funny enough, everyone's creative. It's just about embracing that creativity. And how do I apply that to the things that I don't really like or I'm not interested in, aka money management?
It's, I had an idea that this chat was going to go more the money management and like tips and stuff, like, put away savings every month, invest in stocks, figure out ETFs, like how to like, but it's gone the opposite. It's like build a relationship with yourself, which is at the core and root of all those other things, which, like, you could say invest in stocks, and people won't invest in stocks, or they will and it'll go terribly or whatever. So this is interesting to me.
But I'm glad you're finding it interesting because this is unknown realms, honestly. Like,
Yeah, there's no, like you said, there's no, like, I grew up in the Canadian education system, and besides one, no, there was, I didn't even take, it was an elective. Accounting was elective. There's no financial
literacy.
education throughout all of required school.
Well,
Even in my business degree, like economics, whatever, it's not, obviously it's not about your personal finances. It's more
no,
about like business finances. But
no, but
I applied. I mean, I feel a little bit lucky because I applied a lot of those business practices myself, and it worked out okay. So
you are one of the lucky ones. Um, but yeah, I heard not recently, a while ago, that some schools are incorporating like the basics of like how to use a credit card, how to
yeah,
like, and that's so crucial because like how many people just like are handed a credit card with this high like credit limit and
listen,
then
that's what the credit card companies want.
of course
They hound you at the mall. They walk around the grocery store saying, "You want to sign up for this new credit card?"
yeah,
Like, they want you to be in debt. That's how they make money.
I know. And it's funny because credit cards is basically money that doesn't exist because the
Right.
bank doesn't have it. It's just like liquid money. And and again, I'm glad that it went this way, right? Because I can tell you like how to deal with your money, right? Like many things that can make your life easier in terms of money at a practical level.
Yeah.
But that's not the main problem. That's just a symptom of the main issue. The real problem is all this underlying subconsciously driven patterns, behaviors, and emotions that are making us just spend all the money in that credit card and then be like that rich. And
So
that's like a little bit of what I've been saying, right? Everyone deals with it differently. So
totally.
once you understand, okay, these are the things I value, these are the things that I want to work on because I know now that I am spending money too much in some things that I don't really need. How do I deal with that? And how do I create a strategy around it? And how do I, like, what do I do with the money that I'm not going to be spending anymore in these things that I don't need? Right?
Right.
Okay, is it your interest to actually invest in stocks? Is it to actually try to save money to have an asset, a property? Is it your interest to just go traveling across the world, or just like, I don't know, all have kids? These are all things that need planning differently, and they all cost money. So I like, if you really want to like know about stocks and TFSAs and how to invest your money for retirement as a creative right now, there, like, I can definitely say that, but if I start talking about the number side of what I do, first of all, it might be a very boring episode in your podcast.
I'd be
Because
interested.
I know you will, right? But we want to understand first, actually want to learn about it.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of times things that I think apply to a lot of people like myself or freelancers or even people that basically every creative, your self-worth and how much to charge, because like a lot of creative professionals are maybe not living the starving artist life, but they're living this hustle life to try to always, keep up and keep going and looking for work. And it's the animation industry is not the most lucrative industry either if you're looking to, really become wealthy. So what are some of those conversations you have with people about how they can value themselves more, seek out, higher paying work, or even, I don't know, their, etc.
Okay. First, I want to point out that you mentioned that the animation industry in general doesn't feel like such a lucrative business. That's not true.
Well, I mean,
Like, in
comparatively to
general,
like,
the
yeah,
amount of money that I see people earn, it's impressive. It's in comparison to even like accounting professionals. It's like, wow, like you are earning this amount of money a year making what you love. That is freaking awesome, first of all. And second of all, it's more about how we manage that amount of money that we're receiving. It's like you can be earning very little, but if you don't need much, that's enough, right? Like, but it depends on how you're dealing with that. If you're earning, like I can't imagine cases of people that are earning at least 200,000 a year, and they're just spending the money in so much that they don't have money left, and they're just paying the credit card, paying the lease, the car lease, paying the mortgage,
yeah.
paying this, that. And that's overwhelming. And you're earning a lot of money in comparison to a lot of animators, right? But you're still an animator, and what are you doing with that, right? So, going back to what you asked, um, we have to understand ourselves. What is it that we want to do? Be confident about it, and that's going to present itself when you're negotiating your salary, when you're negotiating how much you're going to receive for this work that you're going to be giving this client. And the clients feel this. They know when they are talking to a talented animator, and they also know when the animator doesn't know their worth, and they can pay them less or more.
It was more about having confidence in.
Yes.
So,
And for that, we have to figure out how to have confidence in our money management.
right.
And for that, we have to understand all of other things that I was talking about. because that's what keeping us from being confident about it. If I go there, you know what? This is how much this person, like this is how much they're charging in this industry at this level in this type of work. So I know this for a fact. This is how much I can offer you with confidence. And that person's going to know, oh, okay, they know what they're talking about. And they truly believe in what they're going to give us. It's going to be a good product. We want that. And that applies to any job for any person in any industry. That's how a lot of people negotiate their salaries too. You have to be confident. But how do we feel confident if we're still feeling fear, stress, and anxiety, and we don't know how to deal with it?
Yeah. Because if you're stressed, you might just take a job for much lower because you just want to get it, versus if you reframed your thinking around it and valued yourself much more, you could get that same job for much higher because you came at it at a different angle. I mean, it makes sense to keep going back to, the source of, because you run across a lot of people, and some people you're like, how does this person always end up with top paying, crazy big clients, etc., and this person who's equally or more so talented is just kind of running the mill, lower end clients. Like, and you're saying it comes back to, like, how your behaviors and traits and your habits and the source of how you think about confidence and money and all these things to pursue the different types of things.
Yeah. Does that sound familiar to you? Do you feel like that's...
I mean, yeah, for sure. So, okay. So, if somebody's listening, they can start right now by at least understanding the steps, which is like, step one is analyze the source. Step two is like figure out, and correct me if I'm wrong.
Let me tell you the steps.
Yeah, tell me the steps. Tell me the pathway.
So the pathway is first identify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's look at it as a map. So we have a map. What are the pathways that we've been traveling so far?
Yeah.
Okay? Where are we coming from? Once you identify, okay, this is where we come from. Now, where is it that I want to go? But to go there, you have to do first, identify that source, right? Second, understand it and pretty much be patient with yourself, and that this is a process of dealing with different things, okay, that you have never dealt with before.
Yeah.
But it's so effective. Once you can name something, you can change it. It's a fact. Then after that, you can strategize. That's step 3. Okay, I know this. This is what I identify. Okay, I understand it because this is what it means. Oh, because I used to spend the money, like the coins that I used to find on the street in candy. This is why I'm doing this nowadays, let's say. Okay, usually you see that pattern. Then strategize that. How can I make that work for me? And those things that aren't working, how can I transform them so they can work for me? Okay. And after that, step 4, you start thinking of ways to create new paths. So, okay, now that I know that I can deal with this whenever it comes up,
yeah,
this way, now I can take myself to this other destination. Let's say the goal is just like travel to Europe. Okay. And then I want to save money to go to Europe. For that, I have to generate income. For that, I have to be mindful of where I send my money after I receive that income. And I can then start a savings fund for my trip. And once I'm ready, I can buy that ticket, I can plan to go there, and I can actually do all the things that I wanted to do in Europe. And I'm gonna feel super confident, and accomplished because I managed to do this step-by-step process.
Gotcha.
I went to Europe.
Yeah.
That's a simple example, right? But there are many other things that we would like. Before I started my own money coaching practice, my own money coaching journey, I really didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know that I had the potential to help other people to deal with it because I didn't really acknowledge it. But once I saw all the things that, oh, this is how I've been dealing with money. I'm actually good at it. I understand it. Oh, I'm confident about it now. Okay. And the moments when I don't feel confident, I'm also okay. I try to understand it from my thinking brain and accept it. And it's a very challenging process sometimes. But now I have the tools to deal with it,
Right.
work for it.
Yeah, it makes sense. When you're, in the last phase, when you're creating structure and budgeting and whatnot, what are some of the tools that you find really helpful and resources to use to do that effectively?
Well, that can vary,
Yeah.
but I always encourage people to do one exercise, which is kind of like a grand scale imagining exercise, and is asking like yourself, if you were to win the lottery, what would you do with that money? And first of all, how much would that ticket be for?
I ask myself this all the time for many years, and the answer is always, especially since I went into animation, it was just put it into savings. I'd still do what I do.
That's
Maybe
amazing.
I'd buy a house, but otherwise, yeah, no, I think that's a really good question because it really brings out what you're insecure about and what you would change. And I always thought if my answer to that was like drastically different than what I'm doing now, which is also why I quit business and got into animation, then I should just do that thing that if I won the lottery that I would start doing, which is get into animation. So I think that's a very interesting question. And it's
I
really
love
hard to
that.
take seriously too, because like, it takes a lot of deep thinking to really understand what your core values are and how they're being met and not being met in your current situation. Um, yeah, I like that. It's
But every time I do it, I see myself changing
yeah.
and the new goals and the value of that ticket.
Well, the
I,
value of the ticket is infinite. So
that's such a subjective process. I've done this exercise with different clients and in my own personal life, I've talked about it with friends, and everyone's ticket is different.
hmm.
Like you're the first, not the first one, that's not true, but you're one of those that says that it's infinite.
I realized that a long time ago because I wasn't happy with whatever number it was. 300 million? No. Let's make it bigger. A billion?
That says a lot about you, right? That says, okay, he's ambitious and he wants to go infinite to many places, to like there's no limits, which is amazing. That's like one of the sources of freedom, right? There's no limits. But
Yeah, I guess what it taught me is I'm not really working towards anything other than just to be in the moment, if that makes sense. Like with my career, which it doesn't always work out, and sometimes I don't feel in the moment, and then stress comes. But that's what I learned for myself, and I feel like I've been fortunate enough to have. I'm still fresh in my career. It's only been a couple of years, but I will. Maybe we'll have this chat in a couple of years and see where I'm at.
God, I
I'll be
would
like,
love
you know
to
what,
know
a
where
hundred
you're at.
thousand lottery ticket would be great right now.
No, it's funny because the first time I actually did that exercise, I was just limiting myself so much.
Yeah.
Also, the real depth of that exercise is to describe the step by step or all the things that you're gonna do with that money. Not just okay, I'll send it here. Like I even included like at the last few times I include okay, this money will go to taxes because when you earn the lottery, you have to pay like 50% of it to
Not in Canada. That's in Canada, you get to keep it all.
I think you have to
It's
pay.
in the US, you pay 50%. I'm pretty sure.
Now we have to Google it. Anyhow.
Do
Yeah.
you pay taxes on lottery winnings in Canada? Nope,
Nice.
you
There you
don't.
go.
Yeah, so if you win in the US, sucks to be you. But if you win in Canada, haha,
Yeah,
tax
and
free
also to ask
millions. Okay.
yourself if money was your best friend,
Yeah.
your lover, how would you describe your relationship with money?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one. You want me
And
to try to do that, or are you just speaking hypothetically?
do you want to do it? You can if you want to disclose that. Like you can use keywords too. That's like amazing to me.
Oh goodness, I don't even know where to start with that. Maybe if money was my best friend, uh, I would probably check in on them every day. We'd have a ongoing conversation, and we would um probably eat dinner at home a lot, but then once a year we'd go on a big extravagant fun trip somewhere, I guess, if that makes sense.
Sounds
Like
like
I
a
just
good
went to Japan last month.
do you ever like and it's funny like to me and especially in like the first time that I actually look at money that way, I had such a love and hate relationship with money, and that I find a lot like in creative people because it's this like money is the source of evil, like
Right.
money is
I
just going
mean, yeah, you want to create and you want to change the world, but you need you need money.
no, but the thing is we put that weight on money.
Yeah.
And money has no fault. Like money didn't do anything. Like money is neutral. It's the people that use it and in our choices with money that make us change the world for better or for worse. And ultimately, the relationship that we have with it is going to define that. If I treat my best friend, aka money, the wrong way and I'm very mean to it and I don't like it, obviously money is not going to want to stay. Why? I don't want to be with this toxic friend that's mistreating me and doesn't like me and don't want me around because I'm supposed to be evil. I want to be accepted by my friend, right? So how do we change that perception? And how do we heal that relationship with money?
Hmm.
So we can actually create and have it always by our side.
I love that this chat is all about, how how you have a relationship with money, the source of how, your behaviors, etc. It's like I said before, it's very different than I expected it to go, which is very interesting to me.
Good. Good.
So,
Yeah.
okay, so why do you specifically work with creatives? I know that you're creative yourself, but and I'm assuming there's some synergies in how you have treated your career and you're familiar with the creatives and whatnot. But what is it specifically about creatives and money that's works for you?
Um, well, you said some parts of it. But also because that's where I find joy
Yeah.
related to people that think alike. Um, there's nothing more fulfilling that feeling identified with other people when you feel like you don't belong in this whole wide world. And creatives really deal with that a lot because we want to create unique things. Um, but I focus on creatives because I saw that opportunity and the challenges in creative people while working in the creative economy. I've been in different creative fields since I was like 16. Started in performing arts and then I was a makeup artist for a long time. I did special effects. I was in film. I danced. I taught dancing. I was in theater. I did all of these things and I saw that pattern. And that's where I want to make my difference, right? In the world. I want like it is my purpose to empower creative people in their financial matters, like to feel prosperous, that we can create and still make a living from it. Especially because while I was growing up, and this is something that a lot of people have to deal with, these are misconceptions, right? Like, but my parents would tell me, like especially my mom would say to other people, not even to me, that I wasn't going to make a living by being an artist or a dancer or anything. And that was like,
That's crushing.
I know it sucks because that was what I wanted to do. So that's even why I went to school for economics, because
Yeah.
I was having this perception that I had to make money to be successful in life. And then when I started seeing, oh, you know what? This is not necessarily the path for me. I can still be creative and make money and feel very happy about it. I want that to happen to people
Yeah.
and be confident about it. And I know this is possible. Look at all the people that have succeeded in this. And like we met at Taffy, right? At this at the industry conference, right? That time. And it was so fulfilling to see all these people just like looking at animation and working animation, which like for my parents, that's like, oh, super foreign. They don't even know what that means, you know?
Right.
And that's how we make a difference in the world. And I want to make a difference in this specific realm of the world because we are struggling and with our financial, people are mistreated because of that, because of this unfounded beliefs in society.
Yeah. I mean, I think your experience is very similar to a lot of people. There's so much fear around getting into an artistic career and finding your worth in that it's almost like so many of us enter and we already have so much work to do to change the mindset, even though we already entered the industry. Like what you said, I talked to tons of people, and myself included, like didn't believe in an artistic career and we're just happy to be in it now. But changing that whole mindset to say, no, you can be super successful doing this, and to surround yourself with people who are super successful doing it as well. Yeah. So I'm very happy for you. It sounds tough, you know, growing up when you hear things your parents are saying that are going against what you believe in, and then even getting into the industry and changing countries a couple times to pursue what you want. And I'm super happy you found this path after all this time. It takes a lot of work. Yeah.
It also, it's still like part of my process was kind of like to prove them wrong.
I mean, that's one motivation. It worked.
But it still is a challenge every
Yeah.
day. And that's why I keep transforming myself and finding all these opportunities, because it's only when we're challenged that we grow.
Yeah,
And
I feel like you really put yourself out there when to like start this coaching business and coming to Taffy and making new connections. It's like we were talking about this before the podcast started. It's not just like sitting at home and wishing things were different. It takes effort and energy to change your own habits and to something new. And I mean, we could talk about finances, but that relates to everything you do in life.
it does. And we're technically talking about finances, right? Because it's
Yeah.
like, as I mentioned, like a lot of the people that are actually doing great in their finances, they have a confidence in what they're talking about, and they have had the initiative to look into it, learn about it. And it's the same way as what, like, and I'm probably assuming stuff, but whenever you want to improve in your art, you probably research and learn new things, right? So that's the same process, but we're naturally curious about certain things, right? How do we make ourselves curious about the things that are not so appealing, right?
Yeah.
And that's also part of like how I ended up in this industry, is the way you talk about these things to creative people shouldn't be the corporate way necessarily, because it's boring. It is. And it's like, even if you just change a spreadsheet and add some color to it, it makes it a little bit more fun, and people are more curious about seeing how the graphics work, but if you're just using like the same language as people that are used to talk about it, then you're not going to get people curious about what you're talking about, and people are going to keep doing the same things the
Totally.
same, because they don't care about what you're talking
Yeah, it's like artistic people, I feel like, naturally shy away from math, which
about.
is a lot of finances. So it's like, how can you naturally make yourself more curious to learn and be excited about your financial situation, when I feel like a lot of people kind of just sweep it under the rug, and it is what it is.
So it is different for everyone, and I keep
Yeah,
saying
of
this, and
course.
I am like saying the same thing, but what you find attractive might not be the same thing that I find attractive, right? But those things that are attracting my mind are the things that I have to blend with the things that I'm not like interested in, right? Like there are many resources online, videos in YouTube with animated versions of how like money works, but because we don't have the initiative to actually Google how does money work, we don't find them.
Yeah.
But the algorithm works amazingly nowadays, so it will show you some animated version of what you actually need to learn, because you've been watching all of these other videos that are actually like that. You know what I mean? The resources are there. Like I am one resource, right? But if we don't look it up because we're not having that initiative, we're never going to be finding the right way of learning about it. I also feel like there's a lack of fun resources, but it's more about learning the basics
Totally.
so you feel confident.
I like what you said about just researching it, because you're right that, like, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, the algorithm, as soon as if I research, like, I don't know, how to fix my lock on my door, suddenly like YouTube is recommending me like 100 different videos on locks, and like I go into Instagram and like whatever. So yeah, if you just simply research it, even if you find boring stuff, maybe it's going to start appearing in your algorithm. That makes sense. In fact, I don't know if you go on Reddit, but like you can like subscribe to different subreddits. And so like I go on Reddit every single day. So I just put some like our entrepreneur and like our finances or whatever in my subreddits subscription. So they just naturally come up as I'm scrolling anyways. And then, if I see something interesting, I'll start reading it. And then 10 minutes later, I found somebody's interesting story about how they, started a side business, or how they manage their finances differently, or like whatever. So yeah, I think that's a really just let the algorithms do their thing. I've never heard that advice, but
I
it makes
mean,
sense.
also, you have to understand what are the things that you need to learn.
Yeah.
And the first thing is, yeah, like you said, a lot of creative minds default to I'm not good at math. Just changing that language. Everyone has the capacity to learn at least the basics of these things,
Yeah.
especially creators, because they're some of the smartest people in this world. We constantly create, which a lot of people are shying away from creating anything, but it's creation that like created the algorithm, right? So if we change that language and say, yeah, I was bad at math, but I want to be better at math so I can deal with my money better, that's going to make a difference. But we have to believe that we have the capacity, because we all do.
Yeah.
Money is simple. Money comes in, money comes out, money left over. What do I do with it?
Well, taxes.
Well, that's when it comes out.
Yeah, that's what it comes out.
Like it is simple. It can be complex, obviously,
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
we do that. but that's the basics of it.
Okay.
Now, if all
I
our
feel like,
money,
yeah,
yeah,
I feel like I'm getting a pretty good picture. So okay, just to recap. Step one is figure out the source, your behaviors, etc. Uh, analyze it. Then come up with, well, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. Come up with your goals. Your goals. What is?
that's the third one.
Oh, I'm missing something. Figure out,
And
analyze,
understanding.
understanding. Yeah, yeah.
First, identifying.
Identify,
Second,
understanding. Then,
like the learning process.
yeah,
Right? Okay, this is a topic that I have to read about. I read about it. I understand it. Right? Sometimes we read and we are not understanding what is it that we're reading.
yeah,
But in this case, you have to read and understand it, right? In this case. Then third step is create, like, understanding what are the things that you want. Okay, so goal setting, or like transforming paths.
yeah.
Okay? The third one is the strategy.
Right.
Sorry, fourth.
Budgeting and strategy and structure. Yeah, we're on 4 now.
Identifying, understanding, then goal setting and transformation process,
Yeah.
and setting strategies.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense. And within that, figure out what makes you curious for learning. Maybe get in touch with a money coach.
Yeah, well, Victoria.
Exactly. Did we cover everything that, like, speaking of, like, how creatives handle their finances and set themselves up for financial success and whatnot? Have we covered kind of the basics, I guess, everything here? Or are we still missing something? I know we're missing a billion things.
Well, like, this can go for many podcast episodes, but it's more about, I think what I want to leave here is we have to understand what is it that we value in order to work for it, right?
Yeah.
To find a way to it. And let's say that, okay, I value animation, right? That's why I'm doing like going in a career for animation, right? And then what is the path for me? How do I strategize to make it work for me and monetize it and make me feel prosperous about it? So learning what is it that you value goes back to identifying, understanding, and
Gotcha. I mean, it all makes sense. It's an interesting, for me, it's like opening some doors in my mind of, like, how I can think about things specifically differently. What specifically stuck with me is, like, yeah, I have stress about what I'm going to do when that I'm working on, when this contract is up, because I don't have a plan in place. But, like, how can I reframe that to be more excited about the process that I'm in? Because I've chosen this career path that's going to stick with me for years. I don't want to always be stressed out. So it's more, but for me, like, I'm going to take away, like, how can I be more excited about creating a structure that, gets rid of that stress and anxiety, and, builds better and bigger opportunities for me that I maybe didn't think about or something. So
yeah. And once we start doing these things, it's are actually not once, but like the idea is for us to feel safe talking about money.
yeah, it's tough to be honest about money.
It is, unless you're doing great, and usually even people that are doing
Even
great.
people that are doing great, they're the most stressed.
Yeah, so it is an opportunity, and that's kind of like the focus of what I do too, is providing that safe space.
Yeah.
You feel comfortable about talking about your struggles and about the things that are good are happening to you that are good around money. Yeah, like actually earning this amount of money doing animation, I don't really know what to do with it. Oh my god. um but there is not a space like that, and I want to encourage people to talk more with their pals, with, like, family members, with everyone. Money is such a taboo topic,
Yeah.
and that is why I created the money awareness pathway, is because I want to create that safe space.
Yeah.
And yeah, and it's in more, right? Like, I have so many ideas right now that I'm going to be developing that it's just like, okay, I want people to actually feel empowered. So how do I open more spaces for people to feel that they can talk about money?
Totally. Speaking of more spaces that you're going to be opening, you're starting a podcast.
Well, we are currently in pre-production stages, and I'm very excited about it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like one of those spaces, right? Like you mentioned. And I hope I can release the podcast sometime before the end of the year. But if not, it's going to be next year.
Nice.
Yeah. And I forgot to mention to you, but um, and I'm gonna be doing some like advertising. But like before, and this is an episode that's gonna be last sitting here, but I'm having a promotion for Thanksgiving, or
Oh,
not Thanksgiving, Black Friday. So
Black
you can
Friday.
go to my website and learn more. But I also want to open Money Circle, which is where group of people are actually talking about money. Not because
Oh,
there are different
interesting.
paths. So you can do one-on-one, but also you can do group coaching. So it's a circle where we talk about money, right? We talk
Interesting.
about things. We learn that everyone's struggling with different things, but the same. And we can connect and create that space and work on the things that we need to work and go through those step-by-step processes.
Wow. It sounds like you're really busy.
Well, I want to think about it that way. I'm
Yeah.
doing a lot for what I
Got you. I
love.
mean, yeah. Busy is a negative connotation word. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a pleasure chatting all about money. I think this is a great conversation to have, especially in the creative field, and hopefully, listeners, well, myself included, can really take away, maybe reframing mindset about how I've been treating and we've been treating money, and the like path, the five steps, was it 5 steps, four step the 4-step pathway. I'm gonna have to re-listen to this again afterwards to really get it down. Is I think is a great tool, so thank you so much. And also, if people are listening, they can look out for your podcast, so thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Terry.
Of course. And if you are listening, and you want to, get in touch with Victoria, I'm going to include her website, which is themap.ca, her LinkedIn, and her Instagram. And of course, check out that Black Friday deal, and her group and individual sessions. So that's all for now. Thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Willem Mendo and the graphics by Luhan Wang. I encourage you to look them up if you've enjoyed their work.